start. Welcome to panel 2 of the IEEE International Smart Cities Conference. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Chen, who is the moderator for this session.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to IEEE International Smart City Conference 2020. This is panel 2. The theme of our panel is artificial intelligence is the brain behind the fourth industrial revolution. Before we start, just let me introduce myself. From my perspective, this panel are assembled by IEEE TAMS. I'm currently the president of IEEE TAMS. TAMS stands for Technology, Engineering, Management, Society. And I'm also on the board of governors for IEEE Computer Society. I am a founder of a venture capital firm. We invest on disruptive technologies that improve the humanities. I was a senior technology officer for the largest utility company in Canada for some 30 years. I'm also the president and CEO of a technology consulting firm. Lastly, I advise on several of the board for United Nations agencies. I'd like to spend a few minutes talk about what TAMS is. TAMS, our tagline is Leaders Enabling Project Services for Good. We focus on people. Our members are in many areas of research and practice. Engineering management, technology management is old and true technologies. The discipline that we have carried on for years. We also have a lot of focus on entrepreneurship and startup, and entrepreneurship for that matter. Innovation has been always the cornerstones of our society. A lot of research in our society members are doing innovation research. And we help with our members to grow from a junior engineers eventually into the leadership positions or become a CEO of a company. A little bit history about TAMS. TAMS we started with back in 1951. Engineering Management Society, and that is one of the earlier societies that established in IEEE. Next year we'll be celebrating 70th anniversary for the society. We had at one point more than 9,000 members around the world. We became a council which set across all societies in 2007. In 2015, we transitioned back to the society which we can serve directly to the membership at large. Our publication is one of the oldest industrial publications in the field of management. We spread around the world. We have 61 chapters, 15 joint chapters, and 20 student branches across the world. The value we bring to our partner, to our members, is to advance, enhance, and improve their management skills, leadership knowledge, and to help the IEEE member to grow those areas. We also support the career path for engineers to evolve in the company or for students to evolve into entrepreneurs. We focus on knowledge transfer. How do you take from a research into the market, into the industries? Our field of interest is many, and it cut across all sectors, all societies. Technology policy, development, assessment, and transfer. That is one big area. Product design and development, manufacturing operations. And we have several conferences that focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. And program and project management is a true discipline for years and is well established amongst our community. We also focus on education and training, organization development, human behavior, and more importantly, many of our members are focused on social economics, impact of engineering technology management. Our focus area is 5 areas that we usually talk to between ourselves. We try to help our members to take their ideas that they have to the market. We identify in the large corporations what are the successful projects and systems and help them implement them. We integrate technology for more better capabilities and better productivities. And more importantly, we develop engineers to leaders. And we also, a lot of our members are focused on balancing the norm of society, government, and regulators. And today's panel, it's pretty much presented what our focus area is. And it's a very exciting panel. Like many society, we offer conferences. Our TEMSCON Global Summit occurs several times a year in different parts of the world, where we bring all our members together. And we have TEMSCON Research, where we collaborate with Research Institute, Technology Institute for a conference. And we also collaborate with co-located with industries and government for conferences. We recently completed a conference calling with ITU on Artificial Intelligence for Good. Because of COVID-19, it went virtual, but we had a very strong support and we benefit from that collaborations. We also have dedicated one-day industry forum where we bring industry leaders on a specific topic or domain for 1 day of gathering. Our technical activity communities are quite a few. We have a global AI standards. We have technology for good, social good. And we have equity for minority in technologies and design and engineering processes. And we have a couple more coming up with entrepreneurship and student activities. Our publication, as I said, I'll come around in a minute. Our team, we have a team playbook that we offer to our members so they can do their own local event, and we support them with our offering. The publication we have been long around. Transitional Engineering Management is one of the leading engineering management publications, being well cited around the world. We have a engineering management review which focus on practitioners. Their article is usually shorter, focusing on the pain point, challenges, and use cases. And we have newsletter that goes out to members. So why join TEMS? It is a very exciting society. We have a lot of young entrepreneurs, young professionals, very inclusive. So I welcome you to look up TEMS. We offer virtual event these days because of COVID-19, and many things are converted into virtual event. As I say, we have a local event where we do, on the top right, bring the speaker together to different chapters, to different part of the world. We have on the right top weekly webinar that we bring some our distinguished lecturers to give an hour of talk on the webinar, and it goes on every Thursday. We gather quite a bit of followers online. And we also have Mr. Stephen Ibrahim, world leaders in AI, most standout leader. He's most valuable professional for Microsoft for the last 19 years in the world, as well as this year receiving the top AI most valuable professional for Microsoft, which is a very prestigious award. He interviews the industry leaders, the academic leaders, and with his interview, share with our members. And we also offer local chapter, student chapter event, as you see on the right, to the university, to young coming generations. You can easily find us on the social media. We're very active in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So please look it up for us. I'd like to spend a minute talk about today's panel. As I say, today's panel is very exciting. We're going to start off with Christina Britti. She's going to talk about towards human-centric city. Christina, I will introduce her in a minute. Then it's going to follow by Dr. Charlie Wang. Charlie, he's going to talk about AI. I'm getting an echo. Could you mute that for me, the others? Dr. Charlie Wang, who's going to talk about AI, what did bring to the city smartifications and various processes. We have Anu Kendall, who is leading CEO for a decentralized energies. She's going to talk about energies and AI for smart cities. And lastly, we'll have Neil Sahoda, one of the the author of the best-selling book, AI for Good, on the AI evolutions. He's going to talk about people, process, technologies fueled by AI. So you will get from regulator perspective, from global standard perspective, you will get the academia aspect of it from Charlie, and then you industry from Anouk, and from technology point of view from Neil. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Christina Buete. Christina is the advisor of ITUT study group, environment and climate challenge at the ITU. She's responsible for ITUT's activity related to ICT and environment, with a special focus on smart, sustainable city, climate changes, and e-waste management. Christina Buete graduated from Faculty of Political Science, Law, and International Cooperation and Development of the University of Florence, where she completed postgraduate study in international cooperations and telecommunication law in Europe. She also holds a specialization in environmental laws with special focus on telecommunication. In 2003, Ms. Buete completed a project for the Faculty of Law in the University of Malta before joining the ITU in Geneva in January 2004. She's a native of Italy. Christina speaks fluently in English, French, and Spanish. Welcome, Christina. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andy. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank IEEE and also the organizers of this conference for allowing me and the ITU to contribute to this important conference. My presentation, as it was mentioned by Andy, will focus on towards centric cities. What do I mean by towards human-centric cities? That's really a new story that begins, or maybe it's already an old story that continues. So that the importance of having certainly a new conception for technology makes us think that now technology more than ever is embedded, and it's a technology for people by people. Therefore, we have now changed the perception of technology rather as a tool, more like, a tool that can give us customized services that fits our needs. I think that now more than ever, we are enjoying technologies. The pandemic that we are all facing worldwide has been also a great opportunity to show how human beings can benefit from information and communication technologies or digital solutions in general in a way to be able to interact, to receive services at home, to be able to work from home, and also to be able to continue actually producing. So what we see certainly is that from, the pure change of digitalization and also manufacturing, now we're moving towards, a society where the human being is at the center. And while, for example, the expression society 5.0 can be attributed to the Japanese government, certainly the overall concept is now more than ever embraced by everyone. We have seen that, especially with the new technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, that are able to provide services that we had never imagined, just a few years ago. And if we also look, at how all these technologies are interacting, we see that there are great implications from our cities. There are also challenges associated with that, but there are also great opportunities in a way, for example, to be able to tackle waste or improve smart transportation or smart energy or smart health. And these are all, sectors of the economy that we do value as citizens, as people. The ITU, for those of you that are not very familiar with, is the International Telecommunication Union. It's a United Nations specialized agency for ICTs, and is also a world-leading standards organization. As part of the work that we carry out, especially on this topic, we have been working closely with other 17 UN bodies in the framework of the United for Smart Sustainable City Initiative, but we have also developed a series of standards and guidelines, that can help to address urban challenges and, help in general the positive impact of technologies for sustainable development. The development of standards specifically happens in ITT Study Group 20. And in particular, this study group really is focusing on IoT and its applications, smart cities and communities, and also on new emerging technologies like AI. As you can see, there are over 200 experts that are participating in this group, and we have, published different standards that address different topics. The final goal of our standards, which are free and available to everyone on our website, is certainly to fulfill and help cities and all the cities to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which is certainly part of the overall agenda. And what we link is certainly the fact that having, a human-centric society that is able actually to achieve the SDGs is perfectly in line with the UN agenda. In that respect, within the U4SCC, we are working together with various stakeholders, including over 100 cities, and through a series of thematic groups, that are focusing on different topics, including, for example, on the development of guiding principles for AI in cities, or, on how cities are addressing actually public health management, including COVID-19, or, how, for example, we can, assess the impact of frontier technologies in cities. All of these contributes to the work that the ITU does, and certainly that the experts that participate in its work do. And with that, I would like to close my intervention and leave some time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're just going to press along and make the presentations. Then we'll collect the question towards the end. So for the audience, can you please send in your question through the Q&A, and we'll take your questions. And once the speakers finish their presentations, then we'll get into Q&A sessions. Next up, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jiali Wang. Academically, Dr. Jiali Wang is a visiting professor for Beijing University of Post and Communications, the Shanghai University Policy Fellow for Center for Science and Policies at the University of Cambridge. Professionally, Jiali is a former vice president and trustee of the Institute of Engineers and Technology, for IET, one of the largest qualifying body and learned society with over 165,000 members worldwide. He is an advisory board member of IET, academically an IEEE Smart Cities journal editors. Jolly is renowned for his advocacies for professionalism in ICT industries and entrepreneurship amongst young professionals and engineers. He is also former chief telecommunications engineer, chief technology officers, and acting assistant commissioners of Hong Kong Police called HKP. Dr. Wang has an oversight of ICT policies, formulations, cybersecurity, and cloud of strategic imperatives. He clinches the best innovations of International TETRA Award in 2012 and the Ken Gongling Prize of Professional Excellence 2015 from Middlesex University, London. I'll turn over to Dr. Jolly Wang. Go ahead, Jolly. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for your kind introduction, Andy. So it is my honor and immense pleasure to take part in this panel. So artificial intelligence is the brain behind the fourth industrial revolution. So the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, represents a new stage in the organization and control of the industrial value chain, fueled by real-time data and machine learning. The new capabilities of Industry 4.0 lead to smart anything phenomenon. So we talk about smart health, smart energy, smart transport over these days of the conference. And of course, smart cities and smart citizens. I thought that you all have heard Christina mention about the need of all these shiny technologies to build a human-centric cities. So Industry 4.0, by digitization, aims to bridge the digital and physical worlds and environment. And that needs automation and robotics to provide the muscles. It needs cameras and sensors to provide the sensors. They need the real-time data and ubiquitous wireless communications to provide the nerves. But the real brain behind all this is artificial intelligence. And this panel's session is to discuss and debate around a few interesting questions. What impacts AI will bring to smart cities? What ramification AI will bring to enhance human abilities, to expand business opportunities, and to help energize lives in the various process in smartifying cities. Just a quick recap of the conference of this 2020 ISC2. And I believe our panel discussions and debate will contribute to the theme, Smart City Solutions for New Challenges including the pandemic. And I think this theme is very timely and relevant to all of us in this very trying time, not just to address the pandemic at the moment, but also to address the post-COVID-19 new normal, including the support of remote working, international collaboration, continuing professional development, how we can promoting sustainability, meeting the smart cities challenges, and also building a resilient future. But first of all, when we say AI is the driver behind, what are the promises by AI? AI is multifaceted. So you will hear other panelists' comments about AI and Industry 4.0 techniques that will help making a human-centric cities or society 5.0, as Christina suggested. Another panelist will tell how AI and energy will energize our smart cities, and how technology, people, and process will fused by AI. AI is also transformative. I'm sure you will agree with me that the job markets will be altered. The concepts of privacy will be reframed. The industry structure will be redesigned. So AI will have a lot of positive impacts on the society. It has a potential of opening the doors to economics, social, and environmental opportunities. So many people feel AI is the road ahead. But perhaps we need to build public engagement and trust first. And this is not an easy task. To sustain and foster AI-friendly environment, we need to know and plan very carefully before we can capitalize the AI initiatives. When we say AI is the driver of the Industry 4.0, I think that there are many success stories, including the DeepMind. Yes, machine learning helps solve problems and make our life easier and do things quicker. AI machines can also take jobs that normally require a lot of training, experience, and even creativity. So societal impacts has direct linkage to AI are evident. For instance, the agricultural development. But on the other hand, there will be job losses. AI, though, also create new jobs. AI will develop and revolutionize the visa system for different countries to attract global talents from abroad. Some will say, like Professor Margaret Bolden, AI is the nature and future. Because on the supply side, AI drives STEM skill, creativity, problem solving, interpersonal, and adaptability. But disappointingly, our current education systems are overloaded with curriculum knowledge and examination-oriented learning. There is no clear plan to respond to the future technological changes. The curriculum prepares students or learners for work in existing tasks, not those that will exist in the future. So I would think reimagination of a new approach to education is required. The question to ask is how should we go about educating the next generation leaders and workers? And how to instill them with the skill of the future? For instance, primary school, we need to know all the basic skills to live with the AI. For secondary education, we need the skills to use AI. For higher education, certainly we need to know the data management, neural networks, and all the kind of AI coding. On the demand side, there will be job losses, which we call it displacement or substitution effect. Likewise, there will be job creation due to the productivity effect. And job transformation will happen due to further automation. So the nature of work is challenging, and everyone, I believe, need to prepare for the change. And AI is disrupting both supply and demand sides of the labor. So, what's AI in reality? I think people will say AI is a tool that humans must think and decide how to use properly. And AI builds on data and also creates a lot of data. So AI and data are developed codependent relationship. Then AI is dealing with the kind of data trade. So you need to know about the accountability of data, the innovation of data, infrastructures of pushing through the data, and skill sets. So AI is data trade. Now, statistics shows almost 1/2 of all employment opportunity will be taken up by machines within the next 2 decades. This is very alarming. In Hong Kong, for instance, 50% of jobs will no longer exist because of AI and automations in about 5 years' time, according to a very recent technological review research by MIT. So it is little wonder then that people perceive AI as a threat. But there is no telling where science and technology will take us, or where is the next stop for AI will be. So we will touch upon AI industry landscapes by other panelists. There are many AI initiatives at the moment, and I will touch on in my next slide. Certainly, you will feel there's an AI race. Chinese government has cemented AI as a core part of their national agenda. An amount of 115 billion renminbi in government spending is committed to make China the undisputable global leader in the AI race. By 2013, London also positioning itself as the AI growth capital of Europe. So it is important to know and understand what's the ethical side behind AI and where is the AI growth capital in the world for all these developments. AI has impacted many things and can address societal problems. But as science and technology move ahead, billions of people are at risk of being left behind. They don't see the digital success. They don't learn the new alphabet or digital skills, AI coding. So they don't embrace the sustainable goals like what ITU has painted and pay forward. So I think we need an advocacy, a future that is for everyone. So we have AI for Good initiatives by Microsoft, AI for Social Good by Google, and don't forget, IEEE motto is Advancing Technology for Humanity. So we will share the responsibility to change the world and create the new world that is a value creation based. Now, with AI moves the world ahead, we want to see it advancing a future that powering people, strengthening opportunities, and protecting our planet. Remember, with all these AI tools and tech advances, it doesn't mean that we ought to embrace all technology without exercising our critical judgment. AI may help us in some settings, but not all. But I'm sure we're all looking forward to have AI giving us no fears, but hopes. So with that, I close my part and hand over to our chair, Andy. Thank you for the attention.
Thanks, Charlie. That's amazing. Very exciting talk. Next up is Anouk Kendall. Anouk is the founding president of Decentralized Energy Canada, and is one of the North American leading authority in decentralized energies. Her 25 plus years of dedication to energy efficiencies and clean energy in Europe and North America has positively impacted the growth of global decentralized energy market. Anouk is an accomplished energy professional that also proudly serves as peer review for green municipality funds and municipalities for climate innovation program at the Federations of Canadian Municipalities. So here you are, Anouk. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. What an interesting and diverse panel. We were having a few conversations this week about how rare it is to get this type of diversity on panels. So thank you, Thames and Andy, for the opportunity to participate in this. Hello to everyone, regardless of what time of the day it is. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, so it's a little earlier than my traditional get up and present time, but happy to be here. I'm going to have a different perspective here, focusing on the energy side of things. Of course, I'm the founding president of Decentralized Energy Canada and have been for 18 years. So I've seen things move in very different directions over a long period of time, some slower than others, but we're starting to pick up the pace now, and I'm just going to share with you some of the interesting patterns and trends and how artificial intelligence is being used to support smart energy and smart cities. So, and essentially, now, why is that not working? Oh, I guess it's just like that. So, as we look back in the 19th century, 20th and 21st, we had Edison that came up with a 27-ton dynamo that was a powerful 100 kilowatts of DC power serving 1,200 lights. That's a long time ago, and interestingly enough, there's a few circle backs that we've taken. In the 20th century, we have our combined heat and power systems running close to 85% efficient, serving millions of people over millions of kilometers of transmission lines and delivering thousands of megawatts of alternating current power. In the 21st century, what we're seeing is a convergence of the technologies, the physical environment and the human environment, convergence of technologies incorporating machine learning, neural network capabilities, geospatial intelligence, integrating energy into the building, automated building management systems, responding to demand in real time, and serving local loads. Like the pivotal move right now is from a centralized energy model to a decentralized energy model where we integrate energy into the built environment. The drivers behind, trying to figure out how to pin this window here. The drivers behind this are multiple, and you just have to look at the Paris Accord, and 197 countries adopted the Paris Agreement. Now we have 179 of those with solidified climate proposals that have been formally approved. We have extraordinary economics happening in renewable energy and energy storage. Solar PV is coming down by 90% since 2009, wind turbines down 55 to 60% since 2010, and battery prices continuing to drop and down by 87% since 2010. There are implications with the adoption of renewable energy and energy storage, which need to be dealt with in different conversations. It's not all glorious. We have issues to deal with there. Grid challenges. That's going back to my statement that we are shifting from a centralized to a decentralized model. Our grid was built for mostly a one-direction movement of electricity. It's over thousands of kilometers. Many parts of the world, there's a high rural population, and sometimes you only get 3 customers per kilometer, for example, in Alberta. This is a very expensive asset. It's very limited in functionality, and it no longer serves the purpose of the energy systems that we're using today. Big elephant in the room is the extreme weather and natural disasters. So there are many ways to look at the cost of extreme weather and natural disasters. I've chosen to do the economic one, which is unusual for me, but looking at our annual cost, the economic losses from hurricanes, severe storms, wildfires, floods. 2017 saw $330 billion US as the global economic cost. That was an unusual year. We're usually at about 155 and between 100 and 150, which is still very high, but 2020 right now, 6 months in, we're at 72 billion, but we have cost estimates from the United States wildfires. They're looking at between 130 and 150 billion dollars of economic losses from those fires alone in the U.S. So I think 2020 is going to be another year, and these are costs you can't ignore, and these are costs that have implications throughout all of society and all of the economy. The rise of the prosumer. This is when a consumer becomes a generator. So again, looking at this on-site energy, you looked at the Apple headquarters building in my previous slide, where the customer is producing their own energy. And that's a household, it can be a company, it can be an industry for industrial cogeneration in the oil sands. So we are looking at a forecast of $205 billion to support prosumers' devices. So there's a real economy there. Electrification of society, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but data centers, and Jolly was referencing the amount of data that artificial intelligence needs. It's huge, it's massive. All the machine learning, all the artificial intelligence, this is going to become a major, it already is a major implication. How do we provide power for those data centers, and how do we manage that big data? So a lot of innovation happening there. transportation and agriculture. We'll talk a little bit about that in this. Yeah, the transportation one is a really pivotal electrification issue with more than 90% of all passenger vehicles in the U.S., Canada, Europe, and other countries looking at electric and possibly autonomous by 2040. Digitalization of utilities. So the digital transformation of electric utilities and other utilities can unlock $1.3 trillion of value for the electricity sector. I'll talk a little bit about that in my last slide. But there's 7 big drivers on why energy is going from the traditional centralized long distances to many consumers to an integrated into the built environment, into your buildings, into your communities. And so, yeah, so these are just the trends. You're going to have consumer-owned systems, community-owned, building integration. Energy storage is going to be a big deal because of the amount of renewable energies we're adding to our capacity. And then plug-in vehicles. So if we look at the amount of things we plug in nowadays and the charge and discharge behavior, I mean, the global electricity demand is expected to increase by 57% by 2050, and that's a Bloomberg released statistic or forecast. Supercapacitors aren't maybe here yet. That's the in-road charging, but in household devices, all our computers, our smartphones, our watches, the lawnmower, your trimmer for your grass, all the car batteries, the public transportation. There's a lot of charge-discharge devices, and they are all becoming interconnected, and all of those take data, and all of those take power. If you look at the infrastructure trends that are happening in artificial intelligence adoption and infrastructure, transportation, again, agriculture, utilities. The digitalization of this infrastructure integrates several AI technologies, and if you take a look at some of the most interesting facts in the transportation, we'll start with the transportation side. One autonomous vehicle uses 4,000 gigabytes per day each day. That's about as much data as 3,000 people. The deployment of the artificial intelligence capabilities in autonomous vehicles makes it easier to develop new tools for predictive and preventive maintenance. It allows us to connect with each other. It allows us to use the asset more efficiently. Wonderful things have happened, but we've got to also look at the implications of the data requirement and the power requirement of an autonomous electric vehicle. And there's expected to be 120 million electric vehicles by 2030, and 7 million of those are expected to be autonomous by 2030. So we've definitely got some planning to do. And just to carry that conversation a bit on the autonomous vehicle side of things, connected vehicles, interesting fact, which I recently learned, you guys probably knew this a long time ago, but this CAPTCHA, completely automated public Turing test security CAPTCHAs, they're actually using this is when you sign into a website and it comes up CAPTCHA and you have to put, tell me how many crosswalks are in these pictures, how many traffic lights do you see? And they're using this information to help with the development of autonomous vehicles and to get that human recognition integrated into the algorithms that support the connected vehicles. So I thought that was kind of cool. The other unexpected consequence or interesting fact about autonomous vehicles is it's got the healthcare industry shaking a little bit, and it's a very strange consequence, but I gather most of organ donations come from traffic accidents, because these are sometimes completely healthy people that are dying in traffic accidents, and that's where organ donations generally come from. So there are some questions in the healthcare industry of how are we going to deal with this? Maybe they'll all be synthetic organs by then, but we've got a lot of work to do before that. And I think another thing is rewriting the laws of how, if an autonomous vehicle is in charge of your life, how does that affect your regulations for drug and alcohol use and the insurance companies? So I think some interesting innovations coming down the line there. And the collaborative, this is kind of an interesting thing. If you think about our smart cities in the future, the collaborative transport assets, you don't necessarily need to have a car at all. You're using an autonomous fleet vehicle that comes to pick you up at 8 a.m., drops you off at the office. It might use a public recharging station, and then go back to, you might even rent your garage out to one of these autonomous fleet owners. And so an autonomous vehicle can pop by your house when it needs some charge, and you get paid a fee for having autonomous vehicles come and stop by and use your charging station. I think there's some really interesting experiential changes between the human role to play in our infrastructure in the future. Urban agriculture. So there's a lot of conversations about innovation in agriculture, and there's some trade-offs in the traditional greenhouse style of food production. Open air traditional greenhouses requires less energy, but lower yields, more land required, and more water required. If you look at the hydroponics side of things and vertical farming and nutroponics for producing our crops in cities and in smart cities, we need an awful lot of energy. And it does produce higher yield, uses less land, uses less water. Again, though, alongside of all the data requirements we need and the power needed for data, we're going to have how much electricity are we going to require for artificial lighting, heating, pumps, ventilation, climate control of vertical farms and hydroponics in the inner cities. And I think it is an emerging trend where we're not turning back. There's a lot of cities that are doing a lot more than we are in North America. Interesting fact, hydroponic marijuana. So it required 2 to 3 megawatt hours per pound of pot produced. That's about the amount of electricity an average Canadian household uses in 2 months for 1 pound of pot. So energy, energy, data, data, energy, energy. Another interesting fact that kind of I think we need to address is that Canada, as an example, about 40% of the food we produce goes into landfills and is wasted. So I think these are efficiency issues that we need to address. And just on my last point here, AI for smart utilities. This is not, when the World Economic Forum came up with an economic opportunity, how digital transformation can unlock $1.3 trillion of value for the electricity sector, and that's before 2025. That does not include what it can do for the gas utility, independent power producers, renewable electricity. There is massive opportunity in asset lifecycle management, predictive maintenance of our power, energy systems, grid optimization, integrated customer service, and all of the things that Christine and Jolly were talking about, the human experiential side of the energy and the prosumer. Energy will be an experience. We'll be on our phone. We'll be trading with neighbors. I'm going to buy some kilowatt hours from you because you're producing solar electricity right now, and you've got loads of it, and I need some of it. And then maybe at nighttime you can take from my battery in my house. So there's a very democratized system of energy and trading. And just finally, when we look at all of these things, transportation, agriculture, data, utilities, all of the ways that artificial intelligence and their solutions are going to be supporting smart cities and continue to support smart cities, we need to embrace the fact, and Jolly gave a good overview of how our jobs are changing, but this convergence of the digital and physical world and the interface between artificial intelligence and the human experience is transforming our urban environment completely. We're not going back. The interesting thing is that we've always been taught, become a specialist in something. If you want to be good in your career, if you want to be successful in life, specialize in something, be the smartest, know the most of one sort of industry or career. I don't believe that that's the case any longer. I think specialization is no longer a career objective. You need to be multidisciplinary. You need to have an integrated approach to understanding things. You need to have curiosity, examine how things interface with each other and optimize these systems. I think it's going to be really exciting. I think there is a time for embracing and taking away the specialized technical skill set from humans and making us more curious and systems thinker and look at the bigger picture and how we impact things. And that is it from me. Thank you very much, Andy.
Great. Thanks a lot. And Luke, that was amazing. It's great to hear from the industry perspective with your experience in the utilities and the energies. This is very valuable for us. Next up, we've been covering from the regulator perspective, academia perspective, industry perspective. Now I'd like to bring Neil Sahada in. Neil, to bring us on more of the technology perspective. Neil is an IBM Master Inventor, United Nations Artificial Intelligence subject matter expert, and faculty at the University of California in Irvine. With 20 years of business experience, he worked with clients and business partners to create next generation product solutions powered by emerging technology. His work experience spanned multiple industries, including legal services, healthcare, life science, retail, travel, transportation, energy and utility, automotive, telecommunications, media communications, and government. Moreover, Neil is one of the few people selected by IBM Corporate Service Leadership Program that pairs with leaders with NGO to perform community-driven economic development projects. For his assignment, Neil worked in Ningbo, China, where he partnered with Chinese corporate CEO to create a leadership development program. So without further ado, Neil, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Andy. It's been a real pleasure to be here with everybody. I'm going to talk about people, process, technology fueled by AI. So we always talk about those three as the, impact kind of areas for anything. I'm actually going to do this in reverse. So I'm actually going to talk about technology, process, people. And there's a reason for that, so bear with me, I'll get to it. But we always talk about AI being transformative, right? There's just so many numbers being tossed around. It's the third generation of computing, right? It doesn't follow a series of steps. It's not following a program. It's not following a path. It's not simple computation like the first generation computing. Because the way AI actually functions, so it's essentially mimicking how humans think and to some degree process information, it's unleashed use of capabilities that's fueling the fourth industrial revolution. Right? Lots of numbers. So if you think on the technology side, we're talking about now more personalization and focus on the customer, and we need to move fast. I'm talking about, new business models. We're talking about process, the digitization of everything, and kind of re-imaging, rebooting, and then the people around the talent and the new ways of collaborating and having more of the entrepreneurial mindset. So there's a lot of change going on. What does this really mean? Well, if you think about technology, it's actually pretty mature. We did the Jeopardy challenge almost 10 years ago with IBM Watson, right? I mean, that's an eternity in the tech world. What's happened since then is seen every sector and industry actually embrace the technology. So if you think about smarter cities, there's a lot of things going on. We always talk about like the healthcare and the 5G and the personalized shopping, but it's really going across the board. You look at manufacturing, right? Now we're actually having AI help kind of set the schedules for manufacturing plants. We're actually taking it a step further where we're integrating technology like 3D printing to enable people you have the design, you have the materials now to do it at home, but that we're not even talking about making more complex machines as well as organics. The ability to actually produce simple foods and even simple organs like the skin. In 10 years, we heard from some of the earlier panelists about what might be there. We'd actually transform the need for like organs or not even using invasive technology to actually do some of these things. Just to think about something like innocuous, like waste management, right? We're actually tapping into AI. There's a company called BidE where rather than you have to worry about is this piece of garbage compostable? Is it landfill? Is it recyclable? You just throw it in the trash can, and it's a smart trash can. And so the AI will actually scan what the object is and say, okay, it belongs in recycle, and then actually put it into a separate recycle bin. Taking it even a step further, in Nairobi, Kenya right now, they actually have a huge trash problem, unfortunately. They're actually tapping into AI to help actually clean up the streets. So they have different kinds of machines and robots actually going through and recognizing what's actually trash and actually picking it up. So technology, mature. What about process? Right, we keep talking about the digital transformation. It is happening everywhere. And it's not so much just automation, but it's actually finding new ways of doing something to actually make it better, not just faster, cheaper, or less errors. You think about the autonomous vehicles. And we just talk a little bit about the different things around self-driving cars. Self-driving cars rely on camera data because we drive with our eyes, right? We drive with vision. And that worked pretty well until one day there was a guy in his Tesla. He was busy watching a Harry Potter movie, no jokes, he had the autopilot on. Going down the highway and didn't notice that this big truck looked over. And even though you could see it about 400 meters away, the Tesla never stopped, right? Because the truck that's blocking the highway, the top of the car got ripped right off. And it was like, how in the world can this happen? Well, it's a cloudy day. So I never recognized that. However, we know that machines think differently. AI can process radar data, LiDAR data, actually even sonar data. It's a well-known fact that you can hear that little kid about to run across the street before you see the little kid run across the street. You can take in information from IoT sensors, from stuff embedded in traffic lights on the ground. That self-driving car can actually see what's beyond that blind turn before it makes it. That's a great example of what's actually happening with process, and that it's very transformational. Take something else innocuous, airplane tickets. They get calculated over 500,000 times a day, right? And it's like they're taking lots of data, but they're using machine learning systems to actually help process that. So it's not just, okay, origin, destination, time of day, how many people are kind of looking at the same path, but they're looking at even things like, what's your operating system? Why would they do that? They know if you have an iOS device, you probably have a little bit more disposable income. And as a result, you could probably pay a little bit more for your plane ticket. So they might bump up the price by $10, $15. But it's assembling millions of different points of data in real time constantly. This is the power of digital transformation through AI, whole new ways to execute our processes. And then lastly, we have people. And people probably presents the most interesting challenge when it comes to AI. Well, historically, probably people present the most interesting challenge when it comes to any technology or tool. If you look at what's actually going on today, you see 4 big transformations towards Society 5.0. The first, connectivity, right? Through all these tools, through AI, collaboration, we're getting more connected, at least virtually, with other people. So what we actually do has a more profound impact on a much larger group of people. That's something we have to take into account. Second, well, constraints, right? We were very limited on what we can do just because of the tools that we had. Suddenly we have machines that they don't need to have the answer anymore, they can try and figure it out, that we can actually look at things and help them, or help use AI to find things like a cure for cancer, or at least look at and see a treatment or a diagnosis for someone without having to do invasive surgery. So only because we have all these new capabilities, the question becomes is what's the possibility? The mindset comes in, right? Because we're used to computers being about automation, we have to teach ourselves to think about innovation. unlock that entrepreneurial mindset to really draw out the value from the technology. Then we always talk about work itself, and we all have these like tedious, burdensome tasks, the admin stuff that has to get done, but no one really likes doing. We're already seeing an offloading of this to AI systems. And by doing this, we're freeing up time to actually work on more complex and value-added tasks. So we're actually able to take ourselves up, but we're also actually creating more slack time. So more time to be creative, to use our imaginations to find better ways, to essentially more time to innovate. And then lastly, there's the new kind of workforce, the way we have to collaborate and work with each other. And it's not just people and people, it's people and machine. And we're seeing more robots, more drones enter the workforce to learn how we work together, and maybe one day even get ready for a robot boss. Right? Could happen. But as we're doing this, we actually have a unique opportunity here in that we can align what we're doing with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we've heard a lot about AI for good. On the people side of the house, here's a chance to unlock this potential as we figure out new ways, as we develop this mindset to align for social impact. So that we can actually be about social enterprise, social entrepreneurship. Look, everyone knows that the SDGs are important and they're big, grandiose goals. How are we ever going to get there? We need a lot of resources, but AI is a good bridge to that. And smarter cities is actually a good way to tap into that. It's actually one of the SDGs. So in combining AI to make smart cities a reality, it really boils down to people, process, technology. And this is just a snippet of what we can. And we'll hopefully talk a little bit more in the Q&A about this. I want to give you a little wine tasting about what's actually happening, kind of fuel the thought process so that we can all innovate, tap into AI, and make this a reality. With that, I thank you for your time, and I'll flip it back to Andy.
Well, thank you very much, Neil. That's exciting and excellent. Let me see if our audience will start sending the questions. In the meantime, why don't I ask you guys for a few of your thoughts that is on my mind. First up, Christina, a lot of corporations now transition into or aiming at zero emissions for their business enterprises. Amazon, for one, has been commercializing that they want to go to zero emissions. Now, how do you think that smart cities in the future can achieve such a thing, the whole city being zero emissions, especially with you in the climate change specialties and waste management and others? I think I'd like to get a perspective on how is that possible and what do you see? I think you're on mute, by the way. Could you unmute yourself first?
Thank you, Andy, for the great question. Well, I think that certainly in general, we are seeing that there is a positive trend from governments and, many ICT companies or corporations in general to take more seriously the climate change agenda, which in the past was neglected. For cities, that's an extra challenge, but also that's a fantastic opportunity, which many of the cities around the world are embracing, for different, for the use of different technologies, but also raising awareness, within their citizens. I think that, probably, 15 years ago, it would have been very difficult to imagine a city which would do a complete process of waste. Now, I think that as citizens, more and more we are getting educated that, we need to separate certain waste, whether it is plastic, whether it is, for example, batteries or electronic waste. And that's part of, I would say, an overall process. To put a date when cities and if cities will be able to achieve this, I really don't know. I certainly see that, that there is really a great, chance of success. The SDGs are achieving it. ITU, for example, recently published a standards, recommendation ITTL 1470, which basically provides a methodology to assess the GHG emissions for companies in line with the Paris Agreement. And, that's just one of the examples. The same, actually, methodologies is being used also by cities, providing a lot of ideas on how to, but, reaching out, zero emissions, it is certainly possible. It will depend on the commitment in the short and long term of individual cities. Thank you. I think we cannot hear you, Andy. I can't hear you, Andy.
Yeah, I got to get used to these. I think, like everybody else, mute and unmute. So that was amazing. That's pretty good. I was wondering if other panels have anything wanted to chime in.
Well, this is Jolly.
Go ahead, Jolly.
Okay. I just want to echo Christina on her point, and I think if we really want to eliminate or plastic waste or zero carbon emissions, things like that, I think we need a universally aligned strategy. So basically, I think this should happen on 3 levels. First is the concerted actions among international actors. And the second level is just as you, Andy, pointed out, business can lead. And finally, the third and most importantly, I would consider each of us has to take responsibility. So, and that's my little idea of universal aligned strategy. Thank you. Over to you, Andy.
That's excellent. Let me move on to the next questions. I like to get some perspective from Anouk. Hey, Anouk, you talked a lot about these autonomous vehicles and the drivers and so forth. Now, more than that, there is the transportations that require in a smart city, not just people, but also goods and services and others. Can you see in the future that the vehicle will go towards more, I guess, electric-based rather than combustion-based? And how do you see that the public transportations get evolved within the smart cities for people, the goods, and the services?
Oh, that's a loaded question, but the basic answer is we're definitely going to electrified transportation, and not for environmental reasons. We're going to electrification of transportation for performance reasons. So the electric drivetrain, increased torque, horsepower, the capabilities of the machine, the lower maintenance costs. So we're absolutely moving towards electric transportation without a doubt. And the forecast for, what was it, 120 million vehicles by 2030 was. And there's all over the place. No matter where you Google forecast electric vehicle sales by 2030, 2050, the writing's on the wall. I think we have 17 countries that have banned internal combustion engines right now. And you can Google it and look at all the countries that have just, have signed up for a commitment to fully electric or hybrid vehicles, but most of them are going down the fully electric line. I actually see the electric autonomous vehicle becoming, again, like to Christine and Jolly and to Neil, excellent presentations, all of you, like that experiential purpose is more of what our transportation future looks like. Your meetings take place on an autonomous vehicle, and there's 4 of you sitting in the vehicle, and you're carrying out a meeting, and then then you go to your respective offices after the meeting. It's like chicken on the way. It's just going to be integrated into society in a very different way. Like, it's not going to be seen as transportation. It's going to be seen as a way to get you from point A to point B while you're doing other things. I think some of the future innovations needs to, and we've been talking about this for a long time, like bundling your electrical lines with your gas lines, with your water lines. Like, there's a lot of innovation that needs to take place for providing electricity and gas and water and other products to smart cities, and I think that's a space to watch. I know that EPRI a long time ago was working on things like this, and who knows where hydrogen fits into our future as well. But I think that is a space to watch, the innovation on bundling up the delivery of things. And I think that's probably it. Sorry, Andy. I feel like that was a bit of a answer.
That's fine. That's fine. I think we have some comments from the audience that the electric buses would be great. That should be the features. Let me move on to another question. I think I'd like to shifting over to the people side of it. Let me pose this question to Neil. Neil, in the smart city in the futures, you'll see that there's going to be big disruptions in the way that we educate people, that the school is going to run. And, especially today's global pandemics, like many of the schools going to virtuals, and you see the challenges coming in around the world. Now, in the perfect smart city world, how do you see an education being carried out? Is it going to be stay-home educations? It's going to be AI training next generations? Or how do you see the education and school systems evolve in the smart city? Neil?
Andy. I don't think that education is going to be wholly virtual. That unfortunately does not help children, especially develop the social skills that they need to. Right? They learn that by actually hanging out with peers and friends. But I think there'll be 2 big changes that are going to occur. One is the personalization of curriculum. So right now we're still using a lot of 19th century techniques to teach children. And often it's you tell the teacher, the professor, you teach the lowest common denominator, right? And so because you want everyone to have a chance, people that might be more advanced or understand the material easier get frustrated because of that. And because people have different strengths and weaknesses, and some people learn visually, some through writing, some through auditory. There's so much variability that I think you're going to see, and we're already seeing a proliferation of this, more tools to help teachers, educators, admin, and parents recognize how each child actually best learns, and then tailoring the curriculum towards that goal. So rather than you're having a teacher basically lead and do everything as a big group, you're going to see more micro-segmenting of the education and more tapping into resources like videos and experiential learning so that people can learn at different paces within each grade. The second, I think, is that you're going to see all this get augmented, not just through like AI tutors, but through different facets. So like there's actually a company called Cognitoys. They have a little toy dinosaur. It's powered by AI, and we'll play around with the kid, joke around, but we'll also ask questions from time to time, questions around science and reading and math and all these things. And what the AI is actually doing is assessing the child where it might be strong and where it might be weak. And where the child might be weak, we'll ask a little more questions or share more stories to try and actually subtly educate the child and upskill the child, in that area. So I think you're going to see more integrated learning through every facet of life with personalized curriculum as the future of education.
That's great. Other panelists, What is your thoughts on these? I think you might be on mute, Jolly, if you're talking.
I fully support what Neil just said on the technologies that will help enhance the virtual learning, because most, if not all, universities already start their semesters by using online education now. But there is a strong debate on the primary schools or secondary school. I don't think there will be any debate on university education or corporate training. They will all go to online and self-directed. But for primary and secondary, because of the interaction, because of the discipline matches, I just wonder how virtual learning can really help more junior or primary school students to get in place, because I can tell you, not just the students are frustrated, the teachers and the parents in particular, they're all very frustrated about virtual learning here in Hong Kong, because they have all been engaged and they're all hungry for the in-person schooling. So these are some of the debates here in my part of the world.
Go ahead, please. I'd like to hear what you say.
I'm very excited about what Neil was saying about that. I've never thought about that. So thanks for that idea of artificial intelligence kind of figuring out what natural, I think this is what you were saying, that it figures out what your natural capabilities are and your skill set and really works on strengthening those. Holy crap. Can you imagine? Like, you're basically getting, it's not a workforce per se anymore. What I think our future is not a workforce. It's a society, an interconnected society working together, but you can get so much value and richness and incredible things by optimizing that. Because let's face it, the traditional school system has really let a lot of people down by that teaching to the lowest common denominator, teaching at a pace that is different for everyone. I think that's fantastic. I'd like to learn more about that, Neil.
Neil, I think you're on mute, by the way.
About hours for this, and Nick, we should definitely have an online conversation. But this what I'm talking about is not the far out feature. There's actually the foundation has already been laid for this. There are actually some basic tools already being used by different school systems to do some of these things. I hate to say it this way, I'm a little bit jealous because I look at all this stuff. I'm like, where was this when I was a kid? Right? Imagine where I might be today.
That's excellent. Well, let me move on one next question here. I think that next question that I think that is dear and near to many of us is that all of us are fear that with the advance of AI, that we're gonna lose jobs. They're gonna take over. They're gonna do all the complicated calculations, many tasks, many roles will actually taken over by AI. So let me start with Jolly. What is your perspective on this in the new smart city? Do you think the cost of AI would actually lose job or get new job, create new job opportunities for the citizen? Jolly, you're on mute, by the way.
This is a big question, Andy. So you're talking about the future of employment. I think we have to understand now computers and robots are not just replace simple and repetitive positions, but they are going to replace positions require a lot of training, experience, and even creativity. I give you two examples. In a very recent scientific journal Nature, they say artificial intelligence has been able to assist doctors in detecting eye disease. That is very important because the diabetes patients need the ophthalmologist to check for the neuropathy caused by the diabetes. So if that can be done by AI, then you can imagine the extent. Another example is, I don't know whether you follow the American pop singer Paris Hilton, and she has using artificial intelligence software from IBM, Google, Ampere to produce her music, her album called I Am AI. So I think these are all very exciting, and you have to be care about that. I mentioned the two kinds of effects, the displacement effect and the productivity effect, and I am perhaps a little bit pessimistic view that the latter will be on the downside. So the substitution effect, I think, that may be slightly greater than the productivity effect in the long run. But I just want to add my two final points. First, AI only do work, but they never consumes the products. So from the economics point of view, when using AI make a very efficient production, the product is not going to consume by the AI, by the machine, but by human being. So that is one point. And the second point is that I think the market will reach the equilibrium state finally. So by and large, and this is about how you have any innovation approach to balance the situation, such as reducing working hours. Why we work so hard? Why we need to work 7 days a week and 12 hours a day? So by reducing work hour or will be a really in price is a better quality of life. So I leave the chance to other panelists to comment.
Well,
I have this is a fascinating question for me. I feel like this is hitting the nail on the head of some really big transformational changes. One, I think the future of our economy, it does not look anything like what the economic structure looks like now. This is my personal opinion. I think there's going to be a massive transformation, evolution of economy, evolution of government, evolution of education, and they're not going to look the same in the future, and I think it'll be very exciting, but it means we need to redefine our role in society. So if we're not working 12-hour days and we're not specialists that are, welders and brain surgeons, and what are we? Are we here to, maybe stewards of the planet, This is a force for good. Maybe we're going to be here for different things. I think it's fascinating to think of all the possibility of, take away the stress-induced illness that we, create for ourselves with a lot of pressure around performing in these intense jobs. But I think we need to embrace that change. And of course, humans aren't great at accepting change, and there's so much time and so much, our legal system is centuries old. We just don't seem to like to go back to the drawing board and rewrite things to meet current day demands. It seems to be too difficult and too bureaucratic and takes too long. But I think once we've accomplished some of those, what is our role in the future society? What does the economy look like? What does the economy need to look like? How much profit does anyone need? And okay, I'm starting to sound very socialist now, which isn't such a bad thing, but I think these are big questions, and I think there's visions, there might be people that don't like the idea of, I'm not going to be the cream of the crop, I'm not going to be the king of the castle, I'm going to be just a part of society that contributes to our well-being and our quality of life. It may not sound like a very exciting thing, but I actually think it sounds very nice.
That's great. Now, we only got 1 minute left. So, Neil, I want to give you the last word on these questions. Could you wrap it up?
Look, we know that jobs are going to get lost and jobs will get created, and how that balances out, we'll have to see. Throughout human history, we've faced this problem with new technology, just that the change happens faster and faster. I really believe that people will make the move, and the jobs of tomorrow are going to be created right now. The industries of tomorrow will be created right now. You look back 10 years ago, we didn't have rideshare drivers, right? There were no Uber, Lyft, DiDi, Kakao drivers. There were no social media marketers. There were no cryptocurrency traders. And 10 years ago, you wouldn't have dreamed that these things existed today. So I get it. A lot of people are concerned, and rightfully so, that we actually have the power here. Like, I really believe what Mark Twain said. If you want to predict the future, the best way to do that is to create it. So we should all be thinking about how we can create those jobs of tomorrow right now.
That's a great wrap up there. Now, I'd like to thank you all. I mean, this is a great session, and I learned a lot in the last 90 minutes. And thank you, Jolly, and thank you, Anu, and Neil, as always, and Christine. And most of all, I'd like to thank the audience, the attendees, for those of you who attended us. And I hope you enjoyed the sessions. And Phyllis, I'm handing it back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining the session. It'll be available eventually on the Smart Cities Resource Center, and you can check it out again. So have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. We look forward to seeing you soon.